we need to recognize it if we need to go forward. That unless we overcome these biases, these injustices will continue again and again and again.
So just following on from that sentiment that the Supreme Court perhaps is more concerned with broadly middle class issues which it takes up for expedited hearing.
You know, I wish that constitution bench on Arunachal comes to an end. I believe it has. But it has stopped the board for the last 1 month, you know. I don't care who forms the government in Arunachal, but you cannot not work for 1 month, you know. I mean, this is what is consuming the, you know, either you have more judges, more people dealing with. So every time we go with a bail application to the Supreme Court, they say, we're only sitting till 1. We have the Arunachal matter after 1. I mean, Arunachal has taken over our lives in a way that that is almost funny if it wasn't tragic, you know. So this is representative of the way courts treat situations, you know. People are dying to get some kind of attention from our courts, but it's not coming.
And I think my question sort of leads on from that, is that in terms of investigation, that means that the court is much more concerned with the CBI, calling it a cage parrot, and reform of the CBI, rather than reform of investigation departments of state police, which is obviously doing more cases than the CBI is doing as an all across the country. So given sort of tying two threads of what you said in response to the questions together, one, that the judiciary really needs to step up, and two, that this is a case of a horrifically botched investigation by the state CID, then do you think it's time for perhaps some sort of judicial action or a case to be brought with regard to reform of state police investigative institutions rather than just reform of the CBI, which the Supreme Court has been actively doing for a period of time?
I agree, but again, that obsession with the CBI comes with the obsession with corruption.
That's right.
You know, it is the same obsession. So I completely agree. You know, it's the nut and bolt police officer, the ones who do the nut and bolt, crack the nut and bolt crimes. Sometimes they are your best investigators. I mean, we can condemn them, but sometimes they are your best investigators. Your beat constable sometimes is the man with the most intelligence. Maybe not your SHO, because he has his ears to the ground and he's listening to information and he's putting it together. Unfortunately, the conditions under which they work, I mean, while we criticize them, are terrible, are really, really terrible. We've not taken care of them all these years. We give them neither the skills to investigate a crime properly. I mean, if they don't know how to pick up fingerprints, whose fault is it? Right? Whose fault is it? And in all these landmark cases, the botching up takes place in the first 2 or 3 days. If you lose evidence in the first 2 or 3 days, there is no way you can retrieve it afterwards. And if you allow everyone and their dogs to enter crime scenes, then the botching up will take place. This case was different. This case, there was a conscious effort to make sure that the evidence never surfaced. This is a case where people were massacred. But I'm saying even in individual cases, we are dealing with unskilled people. And there is just not enough attention. I mean, I'm just giving you an example, not because I necessarily need to be quoted on that, but as you know, in the JNU matter, in the Kannaiah bail, which we are arguing in the High Court, there was an application which was moved by the state that we want 1 more day police custody remand. And we conceded. We said, le lo, koi baat nahi. Now, the court said that the DCP should coordinate with me and that whenever he's moving the application for police custody, he must first inform me of the grounds for remand, and then I would then set into motion my team, he would tell me the place and time where it. This is the DCP of the area. I have never seen a more confused man. He called me 100 times. So, madam, ये कैसे करते हैं? So I said, कैसे करते हैं? आपको चाहिए remand, तो आप application move करो. नहीं, वो तो मैं कर दूंगा. फिर पर वो तो तिहाड़ में है. So I said, आप production warrant move करो. अच्छा, production warrant. वो कहाँ पे move करूँ? High Court में. I said, High Court is not a magisterial court. Now this is the DCP. I ended up telling him how to do his job against the interests of my client, you know. But this is the DCP of the area. We have abysmally incompetent people. You have the police commissioner saying that the accused must prove his innocence. Under what jurisprudence does that come about? You know, how can you say something like this? Now, that's the same thing that comes through these cases. You are seeing them botch up, and in other cases, you are seeing them cover up. Either way, we end up with tragedies.
Yes, I think we have a question there.
In forensics, there is a particular term known as marks and grooves on a particular bullet, by which you can identify whether a particular bullet was shot from a particular gun.
Correct.
So can it be a part of your litigation strategy to prove that the marks and grooves
बुलेट ही नहीं रिकवर हुआ तो मास एंड ग्रूव्स कहाँ से आएगा?
which was shot to the police officer were the same as?
No, वो रिकवर ही नहीं हुआ.
I was wondering if...
I think we have time for just about 2 more questions. So can we have one question from there? Yeah.
Hello, yeah. I know you've cautioned against revising principles of criminal law, but I just wonder, based on your experience with these numerous cases of custodial violence or custodial deaths, whether you think that we need to have a revised standard of proof or a shifting burden of proof in cases involving custodial death?
Yes. I would definitely want shifting a burden of proof in cases of custodial death. I will not support any revision when it comes to rights of individual accused persons outside the custodial scheme, because that is very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. I've seen it happening again and again. All kinds of wrong people get arrested, and then you know what happens. But in the case of custodial death, because there is just no way a police officer will investigate a crime against his fellow police officer with any sense of integrity. Therefore, there must be a shifting burden of proof. You've done that in dowry. You've done that in many other cases. You've done that in rape. You've done that in POCSO. You can do that in this case. See, the first thing that needed to be recognized, and that was I pitched it as a custodial death, right? But the court has not seen this as a custodial death. You are in the custody of 19 men. What else is this? It is custodial death. Now, unless you recognize that this is a custodial death, things like 106 and all will go out of the window. So even that recognition was not there.
And I think we have one question here. Yeah.
Of course it is. So, I mean, nothing happens overnight, right? I'm saying an attempt is being made where we say, so even if guidelines come out saying that we should become signatories, and this is an internationally accepted tenet of criminal jurisprudence, why shouldn't we transport it here? I think that's good enough as a starting point. We can't hope for the law and the entire landscape to change with one judgment in Hashimpura. It's not going to happen, even the best case scenario. But a starting point on which we can build later on.
Maybe we have time for one more question. Yeah, that's okay.
This person to the back.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is that ultimately there seems to be an urgent case for reform of police administration at various levels. I think your particular problem was at the level of investigation. Court and ask them to give you guidelines and so on and so forth, right? But given in the current context in Delhi, do you think that we might begin to have a political constituency given the conflict that that we see between the Delhi government?
That's very serious conflict. It's a very serious conflict.
So that might be a political constituency through which we can make this demand for greater accountability and transparency.
You know, the Prakash Singh model, which is flouted as the model for police reforms, is not something that I am a big fan of, because all it talks about is increments to themselves and security of tenure and stuff like that. Police reforms must be there. I mean, it obviously means that they get what they want, but it must be accompanied with accountability. So the model which is being touted which is called the Prakash Singh model, is actually no accountability. there it becomes problematic. There is urgent need for police reforms. I think the conditions in which most of our constables and police officers live is terrible. There's urgent need for police reforms, but accompanied by accountability. People must now have to pay for errors they make, for whether it's culpable, whether it's malified, whether it's bona fide, whatever it is. But there has to be, when you take them to task, the one thing that all police officers are very, very scared of is contempt. And the minute a court hauls them up for contempt, they say, "Bachao, humne to kuch nahi kiya." You know, that kind of thing. So I think there must be, we need to crack it a little more. But it can't be isolated. We suddenly give them all the beatings, but not really change the environment in which they are functioning, free from the kind of political interference that they are subjected to. So it's kind of complex, this whole question of police reforms. To begin with, I think this whole drama between the center and the AAP government in Delhi must go. I really don't know why the center is poking its nose into what traditionally the state government would do. So that's problematic. It should not be doing it. But then we are living in very strange times, and that is a consequence of the times we live in.
Well, I'm sure there are very many more questions, but I would like to close the Q&A session right now. And I think the Hashimpura case rather tragically has become a telling illustration of all, if not all, the things that are wrong with the criminal justice system in this country. Also, one key takeaway that I think all of us should keep in mind is, let's revisit our basics as far as evidence collection procedures are concerned, if not anything else. Let's keep the lofty ideals aside for a minute and just go back to the basics. Ma'am, thank you so much for being with us this evening. I might have mentioned this on occasions more than one, but thank you so much for being with us this time.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
As a small token of our gratitude, I have my colleague from Vidhi, Ashwini, giving you a small memento. Thank you so much, everyone, for turning up to, this evening, and we hope to see you at future Vidhi events as well. Thank you so much.